Howdy there, folks. Thanks so much for tuning in yet again today. We are going to be talking about a little bit of drama that has unfolded between Valorant talent, so think hosts, casters, and the like, and Valorant professional players in the scene. Now, the specific situation we're talking about today is actually going to be the one that was recent in the Valorant Championship Challengers Tour, and it was between AVRL and LG Thief. We're also going to be referencing a little bit kind of way back in December with Yinsu Collins and her beef with Soulcast in the First Strike Tour. In a tweet that triggered a lot of people, Shinobi tweeted that it's so cringe when the only analysis a commentator can bring to the cast is talking about a player's performance. And before even getting into the replies on that, I'll show you just a few clips of what he's talking about.
Running back shut down, but Thief ended up in a 1v1 versus Steel and lost. Now, in a vacuum, that's not the worst thing I've seen in the world, but he's 0-7 right now. Thief, as kind of the star player on this team, or he's meant to be the star player on this team, hasn't won like any duels. He's losing to Steel here, where, you know, nothing gets Steel. I think Steel's been having a fantastic tournament in Challengers 3. So unfortunately for Thief, if you're not coming through big right now, you're going to lose to everyone on 100 Thieves, really. But to go 0-7 after 7 rounds and have 0 impact so far, especially on a role like Reyna, where if you don't have any impact, you're not really doing a lot. And this is kind of Reyna as well, where even an assist would at least give you some orbs to use. This is really poor so far from Thief, unfortunately. Look, Thief, yeah, he's on 0-8, but to be fair, that last round was just an eco. Probably wasn't expecting too much. He kind of just walks into his death as well, which is either the most Thief thing you've seen, or like just really shouldn't have happened. But in either case, I think this is the round. This is the round where I'd like to see Thief really come up, and this is the round that LG need to win to get that point.
And at a certain point during this broadcast, AVRL even becomes aware that he's talking about Thief's score quite a lot and ends up acknowledging it.
I want everyone to know I'm not picking on the guy. I'm just reading the scoreline. That's it. I'm just spitting the facts. That's it. That's all it is. I feel bad. I feel really bad for what's happening to Thief in this game. I feel bad for LG so far in terms of what is about to be 0-10 game, but I just don't know what words to say anymore. Thief does have a rifle. He has the Empress available. No one else from LG really has a good enough gun here. So if this is the round for Thief to come back big, this is definitely the round then.
So as you can see there, it really felt like AVRL was just going in on Thief kind of repeatedly and talking about just how bad he was playing and that he was underperforming, constantly pointing out his score, his stats, and things like that. We see a decent amount of commentary on this, just saying, is player performance not important? Feels like bad, good performances that stick out are absolutely worth mentioning, especially if it is a trend or if it is something out of the norm for the player. Of course, it's worth mentioning. I didn't say that anywhere in my tweet or in my follow-up tweets. My point is that if the barrier to entry as a caster is just reading off stats from the scoreboard, then literally anyone could do it. It should not be the only thing that is said. It gets repetitive and redundant when the same thing is said over and over. It goes for positive narratives and negative ones alike. There's plenty of reasons why X team dominated Y team in the game. It's shallow analysis to only emphasize the most obvious reason. Then we see Lex say, I think frag counts matter to viewers, but it's almost never in good taste to highlight the lows if you can't offer real insight as to what's going wrong for a player. My I compete caster merit badge comes in handy here. I've got years of bottom fragging. It's certainly acceptable to point out players who are doing well and those that are struggling. Players aren't immune to criticism. It just becomes boring when that's all that is talked about on the broadcast. Maybe I'm biased as a competitor though, and not from the average POV. I think there are certain moments that are pretty important to highlight. If the star player has a 0-15 half, yeah, probably should be an important narrative. But you're 100% right in the fact that there should be a why, and almost always it can be framed in a non-negative way. Leaf says, every round bro, really underperforming here. I never hear casters dig on anyone else except for duelists that underperform either. So you see that people are all over the place here. A lot of folks saying that they felt like it was overall just too negative and that the commentary should have been focused in a little bit of a different manner. So instead of just continuously pointing out, you know, that he was 0-5, 0-7, 0-10, that instead he should have offered a bit more of a narrative of, you know, how could he possibly change this? How could he maybe help his team? Or what is causing this, you know, 0-10 streak that's happening? But then we see the commentator, who is also on broadcast with AVRL, totally disagree with the dialogue, saying, I assume this is in reference to the LG versus 100 Thieves game AVRL and I were on. Would love to hear what feedback you'd give around the narrative we hit in DMs. Yes, we mentioned the Thief stat line, but AVRL also went into detail on how and why his stats were impacting that game at large. And this isn't the first time that we've seen Valorant Desk talent be put on blast for how they're speaking about a player's performance. Recently, well, not that recently, but back in December during First Strike, we saw Yinsu catch a lot of heat for her commentary on Soulcast.
And I've been upset with the performance of Soulcast in this tournament. Very much so. Like, this is the biggest tournament in Valorant EU history. Certainly brings a lot of pressure with it. But the role that Soulcast is playing, certainly on the Raze, we said 9, 10 kills. He finished that half 3. But then when it comes to the buy rounds, there was nobody here for Liquid. This was a flat performance, and we are on the final map. If they get knocked out in this tournament, there will be roster changes. There's no way that Team Liquid can afford to have the kind of reputation they do in Europe right now, and that mounts even more pressure. And based on how we've seen them respond to that in the past, in the previous 2 maps, I'm not very confident.
Mitch, am I getting this right? Are you saying that if they lose today, they have to kick Soulcast? Because that's what I'm hearing.
I mean, you said that. You said that, not me. So.
And I mean, people were pissed about that one. People really came after Yinsu, but in the end, both Yinsu and Soulcast did come out with public apologies about the situation. I think, to me, it just seems like there's a very fine line that Valorant talent, that these casters and hosts are allowed to walk at this point. And I guess it feels like maybe it's because Valorant is so new that there's not much of an established way to cast the esport yet, right? There's a lot of people coming from Overwatch, from CSGO, who are coming and trying to apply those commentary styles to this new game. And so I think it's just a little bit of a learning curve for both sides of the coin, right? For casters having to learn that it's not either one of those games, so you're gonna have to commentate a little bit differently. It can't be quite as slow as CS or as fast as Overwatch, and so you're gonna have to find that in between very well. But I also think that these new Valorant pros are having to learn, a lesson that this is just part of the biz, right? Like, they're going to criticize you when you perform poorly, and you can't expect people not to say anything about how bad you were playing. They're going to point out your statistics, and yes, maybe they should offer a little bit more to that, but that's going to be a large focus. And I think these Valorant pros are just having to learn that, as they are so new to the scene and so new to, these casters. And I think over time, of course, as the casters build relationships with these professional players in different ways, we're going to see a lot of that change and maybe a little bit more of a solid style, I think, come about. Anyways, guys, what do you think? Do you think the casters, need to maybe change their commentary a little bit, or do you think the players are being just a little bit too sensitive? Until next time, guys, be safe, be smart, behave, and I'll catch you later.